Hello my dear students. So in my last session I was explaining about Compton effect. So that is the phenomenon of decrease in energy or increase in wavelength of X-rays after scattering from the surface of an object is called as Compton effect. Okay, so and it had a mathematical expression, so where delta lambda is equals to lambda dash minus lambda, which is equals to h divided by mc into 1 minus cos theta. So this was the mathematical expression of Compton effect. And delta lambda is the increase in wavelength, and it was called as Compton shift, which was produced as a result of the interaction between the X-rays and the electron. And m is the rest mass of the electron, c is the velocity of the light, and theta is the angle between the incident and scattered rays. And depending on the scattering angle, that is theta, so we discussed three different cases. Suppose if theta is equals to 0 degree, so what will be the change in the wavelength, that is delta lambda, which will be equal to 0. And suppose if theta is equals to 90 degree, that means so the angle between the incident and scattered ray is 90 degree. So then delta lambda is referred as which is equals to 2.42 pm, that is picometer. And suppose if the angle between the incident and scattered rays is equals to 180 degree, so then delta lambda is equals to 0.048 Armstrong. So in this way we discussed the three cases based on the Compton effect, and also we understood about diffraction and interference of radiation, which provides the evidence for the wave nature of radiations, while the photoelectric effect and the Compton scattering provide evidence for the particle nature of the radiation. And we solved a simple problem where a monochromatic X-ray beam of wavelength 0.558 nanometer is scattered through an angle of 46 degree, and it was asked us to calculate what is the wavelength of the scattered beam. And in the last few minutes of the previous session, we understood the comparative study of photoelectric effect and Compton effect. Okay, so this is where we stopped. And in this session, as I already told, so we are supposed to discuss about de Broglie's hypothesis. So that is dual nature of matter and radiation. Earlier, it was thought that light is a stream of particles called photons. Earlier means when? So before the Planck's theory of quantum chemistry emerged. So, however, this concept failed to explain the phenomenon of interference and diffraction, which could be explained only if light is considered to have wave nature. Okay, so this phenomena of interference and diffraction, it could not be explained properly if we consider light as a stream of particles which were called as photons. So when we consider or when we take up the knowledge or the phenomenon of interference and diffraction, then only we can explain the light which can be or which could be considered to have wave nature. But at the same time, it was observed that the phenomenon of blackbody radiation and photoelectric effect could not be explained only if light is considered to have particle character. So to explain the blackbody radiation and photoelectric effect, so we could consider light as light has got a particle character. Okay, so here we have a clear distinction. So to explain this light, they explain the phenomenon of light, that is interference and diffraction, we have to consider light as a wave. At the same time, to explain the phenomenon of blackbody radiation and photoelectric effect, we have to consider light as it has got particle character. Therefore, it was concluded that light has a particle nature as well as wave nature. That is, it has dual nature. So this is what is called as de Broglie's hypothesis. So we are considering light to have both particle nature as well as wave nature. So all credit goes to Louis de Broglie. He is a French scientist. So he is Louis de Broglie, a French scientist physicist especially. So in the year 1924, he proposed the idea that like photons, all material particles such as electron, proton, atom, molecule, a piece of stone or a iron ball, that is microscopic as well as macroscopic objects, also possess a dual character. So according to the Louis de Broglie, so he says that so all the particles, all the objects in this universe, irrespective of microscopic or macroscopic objects, including electrons, protons, atoms, molecules, a piece of stone or an iron ball, all possess dual character. The wave associated with the particle is called a matter wave or de Broglie wave. Okay, so this is what? So these are the waves or particles. Even the particles has got motion and even the waves have got motion. Waves or particles, we cannot distinguish both. It has got both dual nature. All particles, all objects, including microscopic as well as macroscopic objects, they act as waves as well as they possess particle nature. So this was the hypothesis. This was proposed by Louis de Broglie in the year 1924. Okay, so the de Broglie relation speaks about the wavelength of the wave associated with any material particle was calculated by analogy with photon. Okay, so according to de Broglie, he proposed the idea that like photons, all material particles such as electron, proton, atom, molecule, a piece of stone or an iron ball also possess dual character. And according to him, the wave associated with the particle is called a matter wave or de Broglie wave. And the wavelength of the wave associated with any material particle was calculated by analogy with photon. In case of photon, if it is assumed to have wave character, okay, so this is if we consider the photon that it has got a wave character, so according to the Planck's quantum theory, its energy is given by E is equals to h nu. Let me call this equation as equation number 1. Okay, so this is in case of photon, if it is assumed to have wave character according to Planck's quantum theory, then its energy is equals to E is equals to h nu, where nu is the frequency of the wave, h is Planck's constant, right? If photon is supposed to have particle character according to Einstein, okay, so this is Einstein's equation, so then the energy is given by E is equals to mc square. Let me call this equation as equation number 2, which is an Einstein equation. Here equation number 1 is a Planck's quantum theory equation. So both are energy, both defines the energy of the photon. So this is when energy is considered as it has got wave character. This is when energy is considered as Planck or energy is considered as a particle. According to the Albert Einstein equation, energy is given by E is equals to mc square, where m is mass of the photon and c is the velocity of the light, right? So from equation 1 and 2 we have h nu is equals to mc square, right? H nu is equals to mc square. I can write like this. Okay, so where m is mass of photon, c is velocity of light, but we have, okay, so we have nu is equals to c divided by lambda. So c is the velocity of light divided by the wavelength. So this is the frequency nu. And this can also be written as by rearranging the equation. So lambda is equals to h divided by mc square or m nu. Also it can also be written as m nu. Okay, so this is by rearranging the equation, h into c, that is h is Planck's constant and c divided by lambda, which is equals to mc square. Or if I take lambda towards the left hand side, so then lambda is equals to h divided by mc. H divided by mc, I can write it as h divided by mc. Okay, so here the equations are not clearly represented, so I request you to observe the textbook. So at this point where lambda is equals to h divided by mc, de Broglie pointed out that the above equation is applicable to any material particle. Okay, so irrespective of big or small. The mass of the photon is replaced by the mass of the material particle, and the velocity c of the photon is replaced by velocity v of the moving particle. Thus, for any material particle like electrons, we can write as lambda is equals to h divided by mv. So that is because so here mass of the material particle is replaced, that is mass of the photon is replaced by mass of the material particle, and velocity of light, that is c, velocity c of photon is replaced by velocity v of the moving particle. This is because according to the Einstein's equation of energy. Okay, so then I can write it as lambda is equals to h divided by mv, or h is equals to h divided by p, and let me call this equation as equation number 4. Okay, so where mv is equals to p, that is p is the momentum of the particle, and the above equation, that is equation number 4, is called de Broglie's equation. Okay, this is how we are going to deduce the relation of the de Broglie's relation, which gives or which explains the wavelength of the wave associated with any material particle, which was calculated based on the analogy with photon. Next, so let us understand what are the significance of de Broglie's equation. The de Broglie equation is applicable for all material objects, but it has significance only in case of microscopic particles like electrons. This is because the wavelength lambda produced by a bigger particle, say for example a ball, using equation comes out to be too small to be absorbed. Only particles like electrons, okay, so only particles like electrons, atoms, etc. give an observable value of lambda according to de Broglie's equation. So according to the de Broglie's equation, the wavelength produced by a bigger particle using equation comes out to be too small to be absorbed, and only particles like electrons, atoms, etc. give an observable value of lambda. Now let us compare the de Broglie's wavelengths associated with bodies. So in the first one of a large mass, the de Broglie's wavelength associated with a baseball of mass 200 grams or 0.2 kg moving with a velocity of 100 meters per Siemens inverse is lambda is equals to h divided by mv, which is equals to, so h is the value of Planck's constant 6.625 into 10 raised to minus 34, okay, divided by 0.2 into 100, which is equals to 3.3125 into 10 raised to minus 35 meters. So which is too small to be measured by any instrument, and hence it has no significance. Suppose if we consider a small mass, then the de Broglie's wavelength associated with an electron, which is having the mass of 9.11 or 11 into 10 raised to minus 31 kg, moving with the speed of 6 into 10 raised to 6 meters per second, is given by lambda is equals to, so this is Planck's constant, h, the same equation is used, h divided by mv, substitute the values. So we are going to get 1.21 into 10 raised to minus 10 meters, which can easily be measured experimentally. Thus, de Broglie's relation has no significance in everyday life, since in everyday life we come across only macroscopic objects. Okay, so in this way the significance of de Broglie's equation is understood, and concluded that so the de Broglie's equation is applicable for all material objects, but it has significance only in case of microscopic particles like electrons. Okay, so now let us understand still more in a better way by solving a problem. Calculate the de Broglie wavelength of an electron moving with the velocity of 1.3 into 10 raised to 6 meters per second. So solution is equals to h divided by mv. Okay, substitute the values. We know the mass of an electron, it is a constant, and he has given the frequency, that means the moving velocity, which is 1.3 into 10 raised to 6 meters per second, and Planck's constant value we know. Substitute the value, we will get 0.559 nanometer. And next, the second one is calculate the velocity of de Broglie's wavelength of a moving body of mass 1 kg, which is associated with the wavelength 3.313 into 10 raised to minus 37. So here also he has given the wavelength lambda, and also he has given the mass, that is 1 kg. So mass is also given and wavelength is also given. So substitute the values in this equation. Lambda is equals to h nu. Since we already have lambda value and he is asking us to calculate the velocity of the de Broglie's wavelength, so this velocity v has to come to the left side. So rearrange this equation so that v will come towards the left side. V is equals to h divided by m into lambda. Substitute all the values. So h Planck constant value we know, mass is given, mass is 1 kg, 1 kg into, so the wavelength is 3.313 into 10 raised to minus 37. Okay, so 3.313 into 10 raised to minus 37. So what we are going to get? So we are going to get 2000 meters per second. So 2000 meters per second is the velocity of the de Broglie's wavelength of a moving body of mass 1 kg, which is associated with the wavelength of 3.313 into 10 raised to minus 37 meter. Okay, so in this way we can use de Broglie's equation to calculate the wavelength as well as the velocity of the de Broglie's wavelength of moving body. Okay, so next is about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So this is also very interesting topic in quantum chemistry. So Heisenberg's uncertainty principle states that it is impossible to determine exactly both the position and momentum of small moving particles. Okay, so he is Werner Heisenberg. So this principle, which states that it is impossible to determine exactly the both position and momentum of small moving particles, is called as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Suppose if an attempt is made to measure any one of these two quantities with greater accuracy, the other becomes less accurate. So this is what is called as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. We cannot measure both the position and momentum of small moving particles accurately at the same time. If you do an attempt to measure any one of these two quantities with greater accuracy, then the other becomes less accurate. The product of the uncertainty in the position, that is delta x, and delta p, that is uncertainty in the momentum, so that is delta p is equals to m into delta v, where m is the mass of the particle and delta v is the uncertainty in velocity, is always constant and is equal to h divided by 4 pi, where h is Planck's constant again. That is, so suppose if delta x into delta p, which is approximately equal to h divided by 4 pi, and this equation is called as equation number 1. So putting delta p is equals to m into delta v, then the equation becomes delta p is equals to m into delta v. Okay, so in this m is the mass of the particle, delta v is the uncertainty in the velocity, h is Planck's constant. So by simplifying this equation, so delta x into m into delta v, which is equals to h divided by 4 pi, or else so this can also be written as delta x into delta v, which is equals to h divided by 4 pi m. This implies that the position and velocity of a particle cannot be measured simultaneously with certainty. So the explanation of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Consider a photon incident on a particle. Okay, so when a photon incident on a particle, if the particle is of reasonable size, okay, its position or velocity will not be changed by the impact of the photons. Okay, so here it is there a clear representation of change of momentum and position of electron on impact of photon. So this is a microscope, so which observes the incident photon which falls upon an electron. So if the particle is reasonable size, its position or velocity will not be changed by the impact of light. So that electron will not change, that will be in the same position. Hence, it is impossible to know exactly both the position and velocity of the particle. When the particle is extremely minute, it will suffer a change in its velocity and path due to the impact of photon of light used to observe it. Okay, so suppose if the particle is extremely minute, so then it will suffer to change its velocity and path. So the position and velocity of an electron after the impact of light protons may be quite different from the original path and the velocity. Okay. So this is what the explanation of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says about. When we consider a photon which incidents on a particle, if the particle is of reasonable size, okay, so this is if the particle is of reasonable size, so then its position or velocity will not change by the impact of light. Whereas when the particle is extremely minute, it will suffer change in its velocity and path due to the impact of photon of light which is used to observe it. Okay, so this is how we are going to explain Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and we conclude saying that the position and velocity of an electron after the impact of light photons may be quite different from the original path and velocity. And next is the significance of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle holds good for all the objects, but it is of significance only for microscopic particles, just like de Broglie's hypothesis. So this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle also holds good for all the objects, but it has only significance for microscopic particles. Obviously, the energy of a photon is insufficient to change the position and velocity of bigger bodies when it collides with them. For example, the light from a torch falling on a moving ball in a dark place neither changes the speed of the ball nor its direction. Okay, so this is quite experimental and also clear that this Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it obeys only for the objects which has got microscopic particles. So the energy of the photon is insufficient to change the position and velocity of bigger bodies when it collides with them. So just like what example I gave, a light from a torch falling on a moving ball in a dark place neither changes the speed of the ball nor its direction. Therefore, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle holds good for the objects, for all the objects, but it is significant only for microscopic particles. Okay, so this is all about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. I am going to stop it here, and in my next class we will understand about sinusoidal wave equation. Thank you, dear students.